Talk about it. Florida Senator Marco Rubio. He's the vice chair of the Intelligence Committee. Senator Rubio, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it very much. I mean, they knew from the beginning of this thing, and they still waited forever. And, you know, I've had this, look, I don't understand any of this. I don't get it. I don't understand what they're doing, why they're doing it. But here's another example of a credibility problem. If they knew from the beginning, why didn't they take action sooner, Senator?
Well, the White House, let me put it to you this way, because I want to be careful how I talk about it. I think the United States, agencies within the United States, had awareness that this balloon was out there and that it was headed towards a path that would bring it over Alaska and then the continental United States. They were aware of this in advance of it actually doing it. They had an opportunity to shoot it down over international waters. They had an opportunity to shoot it down before when it entered U.S. airspace. They chose not to do so. The balloon then traveled across the middle of the country, going over some of the most sensitive facilities, including Strategic Command. It was equipped with a payload that traditionally has been associated with collecting signals, taking imagery, and then it exited off the coast of South Carolina, where they finally shot it down. Those are the facts. That they would pretend otherwise, or that they didn't have time to react, or that they didn't know, that's just not accurate. And I do think that this lack of transparency, the inability to communicate these things clearly to the American people, is causing unnecessary suspicion, but it's also undermining confidence that these guys know what they're doing.
You know, Senator, on that point, so there was some kind of rumor running around today that President Biden was thinking about a speech to the country to explain this. I mean, to me, he should, without hesitation, speak to the country, because everybody's kind of scratching their head. It sounds like you're scratching your head. You're in the Intel Committee. Have you had briefings that are satisfactory? I mean, do you think you know more now than you did a week ago?
Well, I want to bifurcate the balloons and separate that from the three other instances. We know what that balloon is. We've seen it before. We know what it does, and we know why it came here. But we didn't shoot that one down until it was off the coast. I think the one that he really should be addressing is the three other instances, and here's why. These are not new. Last year alone, the AARO, which is the UAP task force that Congress created, had over 114 cases of very similar to these. Same attributes, same characteristics. They remain unexplained, but we have data on those. And so these things are not new. The difference between those 114 cases and the 500 others that they have cataloged and these three is this is the first time in 65 years of NORAD's history that we've actually scrambled jets and shot anything down over U.S. airspace. That's the difference. And so when you shoot something down over U.S. airspace, not once, but 3 times using missiles, right with a country right underneath you, I do think the American people deserve to hear why you did it and what we know so far. And I don't know why it's taken so long, and I don't even think the president has spoken about this beyond a brief comment I think he made on Friday somewhere.
Why did they do it? Do you have any idea? Do you speculate? I mean, you're as informed about this as anybody. Why did they do it?
The only thing we have been told is what you've seen them say publicly, and that is that at 25,000 feet, it posed a risk to civilian aviation. But we have had hundreds of these things fly at the same altitude with the same attributes, and none of them were shot down. So I think the real question is, why were these shot down and not the ones before? What are we going to do the next time we identify something at 20,000 feet that's slow moving? Are we going to shoot that down as well? Those are important answers that people deserve to hear, that people deserve to have. And I think it has to come from the commander-in-chief, who's the only one that can give the order to fire, missiles at these things.
Well, do you think this commander-in-chief is in command? Is he in command generally, Senator Rubio? But in this particular episode, is he in command?
Well, I obviously don't have a lot of insight into the inner workings of this administration, but I've seen nothing demonstrated outwardly, like to us, that shows he's in command. Frankly, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I think part of it is the White House is afraid to put him in front of a microphone on something like this. I don't think they have a lot of confidence in his ability to communicate something like this. They're concerned that he might misspeak or might say something that causes further confusion. That's my personal view, but maybe there's some other reason for it. If there is, they haven't told us. They have not offered any rationale to us, nor have I heard anything that leads me to believe that the commander-in-chief should not address this. He could stand up there and say the exact same thing that John Kirby's been saying, that the spokesperson for the White House has been saying, but coming from the president, I think that's important. That's who should be leading this, something as extraordinary as this. The fact that he isn't, I think, speaks volumes about his leadership capabilities, and by that I mean the ability to communicate, which is critical to a president in a time of conflict or a time of concern.
Senator, let me go across the Pacific Ocean, China, communist China, is saying that the United States is flying espionage balloons over China. And in fact, China's saying a lot of things. They don't want to talk to our defense secretary. I mean, I haven't heard an administration response to the China part of this calculus. What do you make of that?
Well, if we were flying balloons over China, they would have shot them down. I mean, they don't have to have town hall meetings. They wouldn't be giving explanations. In the media, they would report only what the Communist Party allows them to report. Do nations spy on each other? Absolutely. Do we fly balloons? I'm not aware of us ever flying a balloon at any time in my time here over China for the purposes they've outlined, certainly without their cooperation, or maybe there's some meteorological venture that we do together or something like that. But you just can't fly over Chinese airspace and not get shot down. It's as simple as that. So it's just not true. It's what they're spinning. I think they're embarrassed by it to some extent, and they're making up stories about weather balloons and things like that. They even fired the head of their chief meteorologist for the country was fired. He'll be the scapegoat for what happened. I'm sure he landed somewhere else. But these authoritarian governments can say whatever they want. They say silly things.
You know, you're right. I hadn't thought about that, right? So the guys, you should get a job on one of these weather channels. Just on a related subject, Senator Rubio, wouldn't it be a good moment to finally get rid of TikTok once and for all? You know, we started this campaign during the Trump years. I think there's a majority for it in the Senate. I know you've been all over this. You just said Rubio to Schumer. I have your press release. Let's vote on the bipartisan TikTok ban. What can you tell us about that? What's the state of play?
Well, I've been calling on this for a long time. Look, the thing about TikTok is not the videos, okay? It's not that the videos, some of them are stupid, some of them are, pretty good, and that's why people look at it and watch it. It's not the videos. The issue is the data. Number one, it's the data. They are collecting data on, and so are other social media companies. But this social media company is owned by a Chinese company that, like every company in China, as you well know, has to do whatever the Chinese Communist Party tells them, okay? Twitter and Facebook are not controlled by the U.S. government. We have laws here, and that they can go to court, they can fight us, they fight us all the time on things. When it comes to China, if they tell ByteDance, which owns TikTok, I want the data of those 60 million, 70 million Americans and everything you have on them, they have to turn it over, or ByteDance will cease to exist, or someone else will be taking over it. So that alone, data is the most valuable commodity in the world today. AI doesn't work without it. Quantum computing doesn't work without it. Everything is built on data. And it's the greatest data collector out there today because it's the fastest growing social media app. The other is the ability to further narratives. They can use TikTok to drive video and promote messages that in a time of conflict convince Americans that America shouldn't defend Taiwan, that America's wrong about Taiwan, and on the other hand, suppress messages that say the contrary. So it's an extraordinary vulnerability. Unless they sell that company, as you guys tried to do previously when you were in the administration, unless it's sold to a non-Chinese entity, they should not be allowed to operate in the United States.
Yeah, 100%. One last one, Senator Rubio. We appreciate your time, as always. There's some talk in the Biden administration about removing or lowering some of the trade tariffs. To me, that would, whatever the merits might be, I think symbolically, in terms of these national security crises, this is the wrong time. In fact, I'm just going to add, this is the wrong time to help China in any way, shape, or form, I would think. You've been tough on China. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, after the Cold War, we thought free trade would guarantee peace and prosperity in the world, and that's generally been true when it comes to advanced democracies who share values. The Chinese took advantage of all the benefits of free trade, but lived by none of its obligations, and so they've driven a historic export-driven economic expansion at the expense of the American middle class, and has now left us vulnerable on supply chains and all kinds of basic manufacturing. So America sends them movies, and they send us finished goods that we rely on for everything from medicine to technology. And so that needs to be corrected. They're a mercantilist country. They do not support, it's a one-way street, and this is not a time to be further exploiting vulnerabilities or creating additional vulnerabilities in our dependence on China and their supply chain control.
All right. Senator Rubio, we appreciate it very much. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, thanks, Larry. All right.